Today is the day that Jesus was nailed to a cross. For that reason, this day used to be called Black Friday. Now we refer to this as Good Friday. To call this day good may be even harder to understand. The cruelty of the crucifixion is certainly horrible, but Jesus himself transformed Black Friday into Good Friday when he said, "Now my heart is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour." John 12:27. This day is good because, as strange as it may seem, he said that this is the hour that would glorify him. This day is good because of what Jesus did on this day for us. Go to dark Gethsemane, all who feel the tempter's power. Yours, Redeemer, come and see. Watch with him one bitter hour. Turn not from his grief away. Learn from Jesus Christ to pray. Go to the judgment hall. View the Lord of life arranged. Oh, the wormwood and the gall. Oh, the pains of sustained. Shun not suffering, shame, or loss. Learn from him to bear the cross.
Pilate questions Jesus.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "If you say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they've made against you?" But he gave him no answer, for not even a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed.
Barabbas or Jesus?
Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Who do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified."
Pilate hands Jesus over to be crucified.
So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am an innocent of this man's blood. See it to yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas from him, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
The soldiers mock Jesus.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus to the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, the King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him.
The crucifixion of Jesus.
As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put this charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right, one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their hands and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself, if you are the Son of God. Come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. Calvary's mournful mountain climb, there adoring at his feet, mark that miracle of time, God's own sacrifice complete. It is finished, hear him cry, learn from Jesus Christ to die.
The first word.
As he hanged in agony on the cross, Jesus would speak what we now call the 7 last words. They are not 7 individual words as such. In fact, these are more like the 50 words that make up 7 utterances. The 7 last things he said before he offered his life for us. Then they came to the place called the Skull. There they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." What a disappointment his first word must be to those who believe that people should get what they have coming. But what an assurance to the person who knows that he himself would suffer if he got what he deserved. For as the Apostle Paul tells us in his letter to the Romans, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. If Jesus' first word on the cross was to ask the Father to forgive his very executioners and torturers, do you have any doubt that he will forgive you?
The second word.
One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember us when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered them, "Truly, I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise." Imagine that. The only person we know of whom Jesus promoted directly into heaven, a self-confessed death row criminal, an 11th hour convert, not one of the apostles, not a member of his own family, not even a very good person. Death house conversions are so common that most people, especially church-going Christians, write them off as frauds. It is tempting to say that this man was accepted because Jesus must have known the man's heart. The truth is just the opposite. The man was accepted because of Jesus' heart. This particular criminal had a friend in, shall we say, higher places. They say that that we may well be surprised whom we'll see in heaven. God only knows which former mortals will be there. What we know and all we know to need to know is that the same one will be there who promised, "Today you will be with me in paradise."
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
The third word.
Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Dear woman, here is your son," and to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. Here Jesus is not only dying, but is dying in excruciating agony. He has spoken 3 times. The first time was for the eternal well-being of his executioners. The second time was to comfort a convicted criminal. And now this third time was to care for his own mother and the only apostle we know of who stood by him at his execution. Mary was most likely widowed at this time. She was now about to lose her eldest son. Such a woman in that time and place without a male protector was extremely vulnerable, almost reduced to the status of a non-person. Mary now could only look on, totally unable to care for her firstborn. But now he cares for her from the cross. With only moments of breath left, with the eternal fate of all humanity hanging in the balance, will not leave this life until he arranges for his mother's care as he entrusts his beloved disciple and his mother to one another.
The fourth word.
From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus had now been hanging in agony from 9 a.m. in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, when he screamed this fourth plea. He has taken this life of ours upon him. He had done our work and faced our temptations and bore our trials. He had suffered all that life could bring. He had known the failure of friends, the hatred of foes, the malice of enemies. He had known the most searing pain that life could offer. Up to this moment, Jesus had gone through every experience of life, except one. If there's one thing that sin does, it separates us from God. It puts a barrier between us and God, like an unscalable wall. That was the one human experience through which Jesus had never passed. An experience which must have been doubly agonizing for Jesus, because he had never known what it was to be separated by this barrier from God. But as the Apostle Paul wrote into the Corinthians, God made Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. 2 Corinthians 5:21. He carried all the sin of the world in order to pay it off with his sacrifice. That is why he can understand our situation so well. In human experience, life goes on, and as bitter tragedy enters into it, there come times when we feel that God has forgotten us, when we are immersed in a situation beyond our understanding and feel bereft even of God. That is why we need never fear to go to him when sin cuts us off from God. Jesus has gone through it all, and there is no depth of human experience where Christ has not plumbed. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree?
The fifth word.
Later, knowing that all was now complete, and so that the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, I am thirsty. A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted up to Jesus' lips. Not long before this, Jesus had asked a Samaritan woman to drink for a drink of water. When she hesitated, he told her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Now he is the one who is dying, and once again he is asking for something to drink. Even now the tormentors he had just prayed for are mocking him once again by giving him wine vinegar, but that would not be his last drink. For he has promised us that whenever we give drink to a hurting person, we are in fact giving him something to drink as well.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in a tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
The sixth word.
When he had received the drink, Jesus said, It is finished. With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. What was finished? Everyone must have thought that what he was saying was that his life was now finished. Anyone standing there would certainly have said that he was dead. He was dead. However, his life was anything but finished. What was finished now was sin and death having the last word. What was finished was sin being able to separate us from God. What was finished now was death being a permanent thing. These things were now only as temporary as sleep itself.
The seventh word.
It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out in a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. When he had said this, he breathed his last. So now the Son prays to the Father the same prayer we were taught as children to say before we went to sleep. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Amen.
Amen.